Hello, everyone. This will be our final part 6 of Little Rascal by Sterling North. So this section is entitled Spring, and when we finish it, we would have concluded the book. So let's continue with our story, Spring. The winter was long and cold, and there were no real signs of spring until early March, when sap began to run in the sugar maple trees and the first faint tufts of fur appeared on the pussy willows. High overhead, a few flocks of wild geese headed northward toward their Arctic nesting grounds. The whole world was astir after its winter stillness. Soon it would be the season for mating and the rearing of young. The meadow mice broke through the old crust of snow to view the sky. Their big cousins, the muskrats, came from their ponds and streams to nibble on tufts of green along the shore. Rascal was also aware of the season. He was old enough now to have a mate, and he was becoming increasingly restless. On one moonlight night, I heard hair-raising screams of rage. Grabbing a flashlight, I ran out to find Rascal and another undoubtedly male raccoon fighting each other through the chicken wire. On another evening, I heard very different sounds, the tender crooning of a female raccoon trying to find her way into Rascal's cage. I think that's the female trying to find her way into Rascal's cage. During a week of unseasonably warm weather, we put the screens on the windows and doors. On the first night that we left the doors open, Rascal paid me a surprise visit. He had learned how to lift the hook on the entrance to his cage, and of course, he had not forgotten how to open the back screen door of the house. He came to my bedroom, churring happily, and burrowed under the covers. I could have padlocked the cage, but decided against it. Rascal had again earned his freedom, and he deserved it. However, when on the very next evening my raccoon raided Reverend Thurman's hen house, I began to realize that my wonderful year with Rascal was coming to an end. Since Christmas, I had worked hard completing my canoe. I had stretched the canvas tightly over the wooden frame, added trim at prow and stern and around the edges of the boat, and built snug compartments at each end to carry camping equipment, food, or fishing tackle. My friend Art Cunningham, who loved canoeing as much as I did, helped me carry my beautiful slim craft to the flooded creek for its trial run. Enameled a glossy green, it floated like some slim water bird, and at a touch of our paddles, darted like a trout into the current. Rascal again stood at the prow as he had during our fast ride down the Brule River. He still loves speed and danger. So there's North, Sterling, and his friend. And Rascal, of course. His new canoe. Except for the success of my canoe, I had little to be happy about during the month of April. Reverend Thurman had his shotgun loaded, waiting for the next raid on his hen house. And as though this were not enough worry, I learned one day that my sister Theo and Jessica had finally convinced my father that we must hire a full-time housekeeper. Mrs. Quinn, who came to inquire about the job, was a hard-faced, middle-aged woman who hated pets and would not allow any animal in the house. She examined our home from cellar to attic and ran her finger over the furniture to show us the dust. Furthermore, she demanded my bedroom for herself. That is, if I decide to take the job. I'll let you know in a couple of weeks. When I said my prayers that night, I added, "Bless Rascal and Daddy and Theo and Jessica and Herschel. And don't let Reverend Thurman shoot Rascal. And please don't let Mrs. Quinn be our." But I already knew that God usually helps only those who help themselves. In the next 2 weeks, I would have to think of a way to make our life bearable with this grim woman in the house, and I would also have to work out some way to save my greatly loved raccoon. I moved my things upstairs to a big back bedroom and an adjoining study. I explained to my father that I would make my own bed, clean my own rooms, and let Mrs. Quinn take care of the rest of the house in any way that suited her. Then I had a small inspiration. The study, opening off the bedroom, was at the very rear of the house. One window at the end of the gable suggested an exciting second entrance to my quarters. Cutting neat cleats, each 18 inches in length, I nailed them one above another at convenient intervals, making a ladder to the back window. Now my raccoon could visit me at any time of the day or night, and Mrs. Quinn wouldn't even know about it. So Sterling was going to make a ladder so that Rascal could climb up and go into his new bedroom. Ah, when I showed my father this ladder, he merely sighed and suggested that I paint the cleats the same color as the house. I thought this was a brilliant idea since it made them practically invisible. Mrs. Quinn and my other enemies wouldn't be able to spy them out. In my heart, I knew that none of my plans would ensure Rascal's life. He ran the constant peril of being shot. Besides, he was now a young adult and was not completely happy as a domesticated. I realized sadly that I was being unfair in keeping him from his natural life in the woods. The 2 weeks preceding Mrs. Quinn's arrival passed all too swiftly. Pleasant Saturday morning, I made my decision. Rascal did not behave very well during breakfast. He walked directly across the tablecloth to the sugar bowl, lifted the lid, and helped himself to 2 lumps. 15 pounds of raccoon on the dining room table is quite a centerpiece. But knowing what I was planning, I couldn't scold him. I told my father that Rascal and I would be away all afternoon and evening on a long canoe trip. He looked at us quite sympathetically and said, "Take good care of yourself, Sterling." Packing a basket of sandwiches, strawberry pop, and soft-shelled pecans, I led Rascal to where my canoe was waiting at the edge of the flooded creek. In a moment, we were racing toward the river with Rascal standing at the prow. When we reached the river, I turned up the bigger stream and for hours labored against the heavy current while Rascal slept. He awoke toward sunset as we floated out onto the quiet mirror of Lake Koshkonong. I was headed for a dark, wild point of land where there was everything a raccoon could possibly wish to eat: crayfish, minnows, clams, turtle eggs, a safe wilderness of marsh and forest known as Koshkonong Point, where a large creek of the same name entered the lake. It was an evening of full moon, like the one when I had found my friend and brought him home to be my pet. Rascal was a big, lusty fellow now, 13 times the weight of the helpless little creature I had fed warm milk to through a straw. He could climb, swim, and almost talk, and he could catch all the food he needed along any shore. As I thought of all he had learned, I was both proud and sad. We entered the mouth of Koshkonong Creek and paddled up this stream several hundred feet. The peepers shrilled and bullfrogs thrummed their bass fiddles. A little screech owl trilled a note that sounded almost like Rascal's when he had been much younger. I had decided to let my raccoon make up his own mind, so I took off his collar and put it in the pocket of my corduroy jacket as something to remember him by if he should choose to leave me. We sat together in the canoe, listening to all the night sounds around us, but for one sound in particular. It came at last, the sound crooning I had heard when the female raccoon had tried to reach him through the chicken wire. Rascal became increasingly excited. Soon he answered with a deeper crooning of his own. So see, there's where they are. That's the lake where they are. The female was now approaching along the edge of the stream, calling to him tenderly. Rascal raced to the prow of the canoe, straining to see through the moonlight and shadow, sniffing the air and asking questions. Do as you please, my little raccoon. It's your life, I told. He hesitated for a full minute, turned once to look back at me, then took the plunge and swam to the near shore. He had chosen to join the female raccoon somewhere in the shadows. I caught only one glimpse of them together in the moonlight before they disappeared to begin their new life together. So see, there's Rascal, little Rascal in the water, and here's the female. I left the pecans on a stump near the water line, hoping Rascal would find them, and I paddled swiftly and desperately away from the place where we had parted. Oh, that was such a special story. It was sweet. Sterling rescued Rascal when he was little and couldn't take care of himself. And then Rascal got older, and raccoons are really supposed to be in the wild. Domesticated means like a cat or a dog that stay in our homes and are used to being around people. But raccoons aren't domesticated. They are made to live in the wild. So Sterling realized rather than have Rascal get shot by Mr. Thurman, it was easier to let Rascal go out in the wild and live his life. And he found a great female partner. So I hope you enjoyed Little Rascal by Sterling North. This is a book that has been in my library since childhood, and I think the story is delightful. It was a wonderful story about a boy caring for a rascal, the love that they had for each other, and the love that Sterling had at the end to let him go. Thanks for listening. See you next time.